I thought I'd drop down to Adventure Moto here in Dural and have a chat to Max and Bill about the things that you should buy and what's valuable to buy initially versus what you should probably save to later on, but kind of the must-haves you should get when you get into adventure riding.
Yep.
So we're going to work our way from the left to right. We've got a big long list. So One of the things we tend to forget about is staying hydrated while we're out on these rides, particularly if it's in summer, but even short rides, you can get thirsty pretty quickly and suddenly you're out in the middle of the bush and you go, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
on that, what I did was I threw just in my backpack, I've got a little hydration pack that I've thrown in here, even just taking a bottle, but Bill's got a really nice one.
Yeah.
This is the one that Max and I use, and that's a nice 2 litre hydration bladder. It has the, what do you call that? The mouthpiece?
The tube, I guess.
The tube,
Yeah,
the mouthpiece, to be able to literally stop, open it up, have a drink, put that down.
Yeah.
And you can get that into the helmet too. Like you can, because I find when I get thirsty is when I'm actually on a little section in between harder sections and you suddenly go, oh yeah, and you can get it up in there.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest thing I've found with this is ease of use. Typically, prior to me having the bladder, I used to carry a bottle of water, and to stop, take the helmet off, use the bottle of water, I would never do it.
And store it away again. And
store it away
this
again.
way it's always on your body. You don't feel it. A good harness like this is the Climb Quench Pack, for example. It's about $170, you know. So it's an investment, but you've got a good harness here, so you're not going to feel the weight.
Yep.
And yeah, it just reminds you, hey, drink your water, because you forget, and it's really easy on a hot day to get dehydrated while riding.
Yep.
It's not really something you think about. At least carry water on you. If you don't have a good bladder or backpack yet, at least try get maybe a tank bag if you've got one with a bottle of water in there.
Yep.
But this really allows you to drink with your helmet on and just push on.
All day.
Yeah.
And one of the big things about this too is the fact that you're able to carry a little bit of food with you.
Yes.
Got to carry your jerky with you.
And that's a good point too, is food. So it's not just water, even just some little snacks. In my tank bag here, I've even just got some strawberries and creams. Snakes is a popular one.
Yeah, keeping your sugars up. Yeah, just keep your energy levels. I think fruit is probably a responsible option. But
they could the doctor away.
I don't really see that often. Mostly snakes, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Snakes, M&Ms are very good because of the candy outer shell. They stop the chocolate from melting.
Yeah, so we took a couple of protein bars. Chris grabbed a couple of protein bars from the cupboard, and they were the chocolate-covered ones. And then within 5 minutes, you couldn't eat them.
Especially with adventure riding, where you're doing 8 to 10 hours a day. You need to keep that energy.
And when I get into the wrong mindset, which is usually a shitty mindset, and sort of I'm going, I want to get out of this. It's usually a little bit of hangry going on, and I have a couple of a couple of bits of snacks and some water and a little break, and suddenly it changes your mindset altogether. So it plays a bigger effect than you think it does.
Well, generally to rehydrate, you don't just need electrolytes. You need like sodium and glucose as well. So sugar, it'll have salts and whatnot, and water, and that's a really good combo to just stay energized, I guess. Yeah.
All right, now we kind of touched on backpacks.
Yep.
So backpack is a really good option as far as luggage. So we're going to get more into luggage later, but even just those initial little rides, having a backpack.
With like a good harness.
Yep.
All this surface area, it hugs your chest. It keeps the weight really close to your back. You don't want to carry heaps of stuff on your back, obviously. Like if you've got a really big backpack, that's going to maybe contribute. But something like this, that you can fit layers and extra gloves and goggles and water. It's got the bladder in there as well, the holster. So something like that with an appropriate harness. You don't want to just buy a hiking backpack because they're too thin, and this is going to really hug you.
I think if you're under a couple of kilos, no more than a couple of kilos, then I found it more comfortable to have that little bit of weight on my back rather than on the bike. Particularly if it's near the rear and up high, it's I much prefer to have it on me.
If someone wants water on them and they're super worried about weight on their back, a waist pack like this. This is the Aqua XC, I believe it's called. XC Aqua from Climb, and you have your water as well. It's a lumbar bladder in there, and it's on your waist now, so keeps it really low down. If you really don't want anything up there, this is another good option because that comes out more, and you can just feed it up, drink,
love it,
and then push it back. And
I actually use this Low Pro one, which is not a motorcycle brand; it's a photography brand, but particularly for my drone and my camera, because having that, the vibration that comes from the bike just rattles everything to bits.
Yeah.
So cameras and so on, you want to protect them.
Yes.
So that's where I found that was one of my favourite things I've bought recently, because also when you get off the bike and you get to a cafe or whatever, because that's what adventure riders do. Yeah. You've got it on your back, so you don't have to then try and lock anything or whatever. You've just got it with you. So,
yeah. No, I agree. Yep.
Nice.
And the other thing too is during the day, because we're usually out all day, is the fact that you can layer up and layer down.
Yeah.
We've been, especially crossing the Great Dividing Range, our Blue Mountains here, you start off back in Sydney, it's fairly warm. By the time you get up in the mountains, you're wanting to put a thermal layer on, and we'll touch on that later.
Yes.
As the day warms up, you take the thermal layer off, and then you need a place to be able to put those sorts of things rather than leave that on. Hence, having a backpack size such that you've got that extra room to be able to move things around is a very handy thing.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yep. Another really vital thing to keep in your backpack is the first aid kit, and obviously you can get these pretty much anywhere. But for me, I think it's just having those absolute basics to be able to. Of course, a first aid course, doing a first aid course, having that knowledge is also really key. But having a first aid kit, is probably, I think, is a must.
You want to be able to contact emergency services, obviously. That not always the first aid kit is going to do everything for you.
No,
but
it is the first aid.
But painkillers and bandaging things up. You never know, right? It's better to have it and not need to use it rather than not have it and all of a sudden you need it. It's one of those
spot
type
on,
of
Max.
things. Yeah.
One of the things I like with our first aid kits, and Vern's dug this out, is some painkillers, which is critical. There's an ibuprofen, paracetamol, and the other thing I like carrying is a space blanket. Because it does two things. One, the problem with people when they go into shock, they start to get very cold and shivery. So having a space blanket to wrap around them, or in a situation where we have a really hot day, you can create a shelter for them.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Yes.
So that space blanket doesn't take up much room, but it's exceedingly handy.
So
nice.
A DIY like Vern's secondary first aid kit here.
Right down
which
the
has
Kleenex.
toothpaste in it as well.
Toothpaste and some painkillers and tissues, but space blankets, stuff like that. You can easily make something. You don't have to get some, fancy, but who knows? You might be the only one on that ride with a proper first aid kit, and all of a sudden you really need it. So.
Yes, absolutely. And you never know when you're going to separate it as well. So, but even just tissues, I like just carrying a couple of tissues because you never think of when you suddenly got a runny nose and there's no store around in the middle of the bush. So, and even Imodium, I think it is for in case you eat the wrong food.
Too many Smarties.
That's it. So on the sort of medical
safety
sort of aspect, earplugs. I can't ride without earplugs. If we're getting into sort of slow stuff, I might take them out. But on the freeway, for me, it's an absolute must.
Generally, like if you know someone who's been riding motorbikes for decades, it's this guy right here.
Hey?
I almost forgot.
And you can use either these cheap disposable ones, which is what I tend to use, or you can get reusable ones. But either way, you're protecting that long-term loss of hearing, and it doesn't take much because that wind noise is pretty loud.
And it's that constant noise too. Yeah. It's something which is going to be all day, and it starts to break down your hearing over a period of time.
Yeah.
So something as simple as having disposable earbuds like that, which you can get usually at your hardware store very, very cheaply, or going to something which can be reusable, cleaned and reused, is absolutely paramount for your own safety.
Yeah,
I just bought those, a big box of them. On the hardware.
You can still hear things. You're not going to be blocking all the noise. You can hear beeps and sirens and stuff, but it's just that high frequency that it makes its way in there, and without earplugs, you're just going to find the more you ride, the more fatigue you get, and the more noise you're going to be left after you're off the bike.
I actually found I hear better with them because even with the center, and so the center's speaker's obviously right here, but it eliminates the wind noise, and you can actually hear better. Even Lockie will probably argue with me, who's behind the camera at the moment. Just got his L's today, well done, Locke. I even wore these to a concert. So we went to Foo Fighters, I wore them at a concert, and I actually found the sound better.
Yes.
Because it filtered out the noise and left you with the good sound. So horns and other bikes up behind you, you can still hear them easily.
Yeah, cool.
And did you say those ones even have different? You can pick different levels.
These Alpine earbuds are the ones I use. I've been using them for a long time, mainly because I've got a very small ear canal.
Right.
And they're one of the very few ones which actually fit in my ear canal and feel comfortable over a period of time.
Yep.
Now, they come in two different styles. You've got one which is what they call medium protection, and one is high protection. So if you're on a race bike or doing track days, the red ones are for high protection, the black ones are for medium protection.
Yep.
You can use both. I've used both, and you can still hear quite clearly, as you said, if someone's talking to you, but it does give you a filtering option.
There's probably people who will tell you, just buy MX boots, buy Enduro boots, but I think at least in Bill and I's experience from having customers come in, they can be quite stiff if you're not used to them. So a couple good boot options that we recommend, they're decent adventure boots, something that's still going to give you a lot of protection, but they're not too stiff for a new person who's new to dirt.
Yeah.
The former Terra Evo boot and the Climb Adventure GTX boot, they're both waterproof. They both hold plenty of protection for dual sport riding, but yeah, you're not going to.
And they're both comfortable.
They're both comfortable. That's important as well, because if you're going to be
Spend
riding
a lot of time in them.
long days. So
Exactly.
Weather and terrain, as in sort of water and so on, is comfort, and there's also ankle protection.
Ankle protection, heel protection, foot protection, so it's not going to bend too much. Just in general, it's got the good amount of protection without being too intimidating and too stiff. It's a good way to progress into a stiffer boot, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I did find when I got my first boots, I tried riding it on my road bike and I couldn't actually shift because I couldn't move my ankle, and that was a hard thing to get used to.
Yeah, you'll find that. A lot of people have to move their shift lever and get used to it, but
wearing a boot instead.
And that's a really good point to bring forward. These boots have a very thick toe box. Is that the right description,
Yes,
Max? Toe box. So when you're standing up, it's very hard to get that foot underneath to make the gear shift to change. So it is something that it's probably a good idea, especially when you're off-road riding, to set the gear shift such that you are now more specialised towards having a change with standing up rather than when you're sitting down.
Yeah, exactly right.
Nice.
But there's not. Pretty much the main message is there's not a big need to go straight into MX boots if you're not comfortable. The main thing, you want to be comfortable. So you're not distracted, and you can go on long days and just enjoy yourself.
Nice, like it. All right. Some of these things that we're looking at aren't necessarily expensive stuff. They're just really handy. So rock straps, I found, I can't go anywhere without these.
Yeah, these are just handy to have. It's, again, one of those things that if you have them, you're probably most of the time not going to need to use them. But when you don't have them, you think to yourself, crap, I wish I had some rock straps,
Yeah, better to have them and not need them than
One of the biggest benefits of the rock straps over other Oki straps is, one, they're a very strong fixture, they don't come apart. Secondly, they actually have an elastic built into them to be able to have a bit of a give, because when you're doing adventure riding and you're bouncing over a lot of the trails, you want your luggage to be able to move around a little bit but still keep cinched down.
So you can really stretch these out and tie your luggage down. Because it's got this ballistic kind of elastic in there. But it's like an airplane wing. It gives a little bit, so you're not going to snap anything or burst something. So.
Or get loose and fall apart.
Exactly, yeah.
I think that car going past wouldn't have been too much of an issue.
Wasn't that bad, but I don't know.
It was only
switched
short.
to like this one and probably picked you up.
Yeah, exactly.
I guarantee this one will pick Bill up pretty well. Well, no, I'm not. No, I wasn't even trying to be funny.
Well, it worked. So let's talk about tyres. Oh my God, we're going to open this can.
Yes.
No, we're not going to talk about brands. We're not going to talk about which tyre do I have to get.
Damn.
Probably the only thing we're going to talk about is your bike. If you buy a new bike, it's going to come with a set of tyres on it. And generally they're pretty road orientated tyres typically. My recommendation is straight away you've got 50/50s and 80/20s. Personally, my personal choice, because I do more dirt stuff and I want to have the grip in the dirt, and I'm happy to compromise on the noise for that grip, so I will always go for the 80/20 at least.
Yeah, so there's 70/30, 80/20 off-road we mean. So this is going to be 80% off-road, 20% on-road use. This is 50/50. At least get yourself a pair of 50/50 tyres. Even if you are mostly road and you do a little bit of graded roads, it's just worth having. You don't want to be using a street tire because the difference is so noticeable. If you're interested in just progressing in the dirt, just straight away go get either a 70-30 off-road tire or a 80-20 off-road tire, because that will give you a lot more confidence being a new off-road rider than something like this, let alone stock kind of street touring tires.
Yeah, I found particularly on the front, like having confidence in that front end because I had a reasonable grippy tyre on the front. Yeah. Even if half of that was, I was nowhere near the traction levels, just sensing that I had a good tyre under me was a confidence builder.
Well, your front's going to track, right?
Yes.
So that's what's going to steer you. Your rear, you can spin a little bit, and it's not a huge issue. But the front,
follow behind.
Yeah, the front. As soon as that loses, you're swept. And so a good front tyre, I go for like a 90% off-road front tyre. I just make sure it's super.
Yeah. We rode back from Bellsline Road the other day, and ridiculous water. It was almost like swimming on the way back.
It was.
Knobby tyres. People are afraid that knobby tyres don't have the grip in the wet, but
it's not true. Hey?
They're so grippy.
Yeah. In fact, I think Vern and I stopped and we said because the knobby tyres have so much tread depth, we were actually getting through the water.
Yes.
It was a river of water.
It was thick.
Road.
Yeah. It was. You would aquaplane on a street tyre, I reckon.
Yes.
So Lockie and I started watching Game of Thrones again.
Winter is coming.
Oh, that's all right. I'm fine.
You're not. You're freezing.
Good show.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yep.
Now, there's a couple little things that I think are a must-have for if you're going to be riding into the winter months. And why wouldn't you? The whole point of adventure riding is having an adventure, so don't give it up just because it's getting cold. Neck warmers is probably a nice, easy must-have to keep in your bag.
You could either go with a standard neck warmer or a balaclava style neck warmer, which comes over your head. Really good for you baldies out there. If you've got no hair, it's going to keep your head warm. Shout out to my dad. But yeah, these are merino, 100% Australian merino. If it's merino, it's going to be antimicrobial. It's going to be heat regulating. It'll keep you warm. It'll block the wind a little bit. And I just found it's always a crucial, even if it's chilly, like gets below 20, your neck is super exposed between your helmet and your jacket. If you don't have something there like a buff, like one of these, you'll definitely feel it.
Yeah, I found even just having that gap there between the helmet, it just makes it so much more comfortable. And again, it comes back to comfort means longevity. It means
less fatigue, therefore better concentration.
Yeah. Putting on the neck warmer, I find I just hold it there, and when I put my helmet on, so just grab it and just hold it at your shin, put your helmet on, and then your helmet will hold it in place.
I put it up. Looks a bit silly, but I put it up like almost to my eyes, and then when I put my helmet on, it rolls down, but not to where it's off. It's just right there at my cheeks, because it will kind of roll down as you put your helmet on. But if you put it up and kind of cover your face with it, like a bandit, and then you put your helmet on, it won't go down all the way off. And it's layering in general for winter. We also do both tops and pants in merino. So these are long pants, just clipped up here. And this is a long top. This is 240 GSM Australian merino. This is again our ADV Works brand. Merino is heat regulating, so it'll wick sweat, and if you've got good ventilation on your jacket, the air will cool you down, and you will cool to the ambient temperature of the air. Cold weather, keep you warm. Hotter weather, or if you're doing a tricky section that you kind of start sweating, this will regulate your heat. And again, it's antimicrobial. I could wear this for a week straight and I wouldn't really notice any stench.
But we might.
They might. Yeah, true.
The other thing, and Matt's just touched on that, is the fact that we're wearing this as a base layer. And in a lot of cases, when you've got your overpants on there, it's nice to have a base layer to be able to allow it to move underneath there without it grabbing and giving you sort of areas which become hot spots on your body.
When you first start riding, probably gloves are one of the first things you're going to buy, and you'll probably end up going for more of a summer type glove, and that's a good thing. Personally, I carry two gloves. I've got my winter gloves and my summer gloves, and usually when we're in these interim weather, I'll take both and I'll wear those in the morning, and then I'll swap over to the summer gloves once I can't get my hand into them because they're sweaty.
Yeah, often I'm a 3-glove kind of man, a bit heavier and road-based versus lighter and dirt-based. Obviously, slide protection, you're not going to get a lot out of this, but dexterity you will.
Yes.
And then this, you're going to get a lot more protection.
That's a really good point too, around if you're beginning riding. having that feeling in your hands so you can get to the controls easy, get to your indicators and your horn.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? So that's why you want to carry multiple pairs of gloves. But most people will just get this and they'll be fairly content. And I guess you got to think about if you're going out riding, it can get pretty cold pretty quick depending on where you are.
On the way to or from where you've been is where you're going to notice it.
And so these are Vern's well-worn winter gloves. But a pair of winter gloves like this, while you lose feel with how thick the fingers may be, you gain the feel that, if you didn't have these gloves, your fingers will go numb. And I guarantee you, if you don't have like a good pair of gloves and it gets really cold, they're the first things, the fingertips go numb.
And on the way to going numb, they get very, very, very painful.
Yes. They get painful. So I think if you're going to have two gloves, have a ventilated pair, something that if you wanted to wear a liner underneath, you could fit it under. Even just being waterproof, it'll block out most of the wind, and if it rains, you're not going to have soaking wet hands.
Having heated grips is obviously great, but there's even now heated gloves, heated jackets, heated everything. Heated underpants.
Yes, yeah.
Apparently.
So if you are someone who lives...
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I haven't seen heated socks.
Yet.
Yeah. Oh, that's a business idea.
That's right. Quick,
I'll note
that.
If you live in a really cold climate, heated grips are great, but they only heat the bottom of your hands. So a heated glove, now that's going to range upwards of $250, $300 for a good pair.
Yep.
But you're going to get the top warmth as well.
Absolutely.
I've never found it super necessary, but again, I'm not, I don't live in the high country Bride or where it gets really cold or.
But you don't have to go far. Like we went to Abercrombie last weekend, and it's March. It's mid-March at the moment. It got down to 13 degrees and it was raining. Yeah. We froze our butts off. We were just as cold. Even Gary said we were just as cold as we were that day coming back from Bells, and that was January.
That was December.
December.
Yeah. So height of summer. Yeah. And we were freezing crossing the mountains.
Literally. Yeah. Shaking.
I was shaking.
On the lowest setting, at least 3-4 hours. And use it when you need it, because they just act as a normal insulated pair of gloves when you're not on, but when they're on,
switch it on when you need it.
Boom! It's like a punch chair. It's great.
We've done the daily rides, so say you've been riding for a little bit and you've done a few little rides, then you're going to start doing longer rides and you'll start doing overnight rides. So there's a bunch of stuff you'll need for yourself and there's a bunch of things you'll need for the bike. So we're going to start with the things that you need for yourself. Now this is something I didn't even realise existed. Padded shorts.
Oh yes, one of my favourites. So a padded short like Moto Skivvies, it's a wider pad, so it's going to run down your leg a little bit.
Yep.
But this will act. They do long pants as well, so this acts as like a base layer as well. It's got a nice cooling fabric to it as well. But whereas some of these bikes have really really bad seats. I don't know what the manufacturers are doing, but
sort of focus.
Just bad. Like even the angles, it's cutting right into the bones there.
In my day, they called it monkey butt. So you've been on the bike for a whole day, you get off and you got this pink
red butt,
and you don't think much of it at night because you're sitting down in a beautiful lounge. Yeah. You get on that bike for the next day and you think, I don't really want to be here. Yeah. So having something which is going to give you that padding, that little bit of extra cushioning is absolutely a godsend.
And it's probably cheaper than a comfort seat.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, a comfort seat is a good idea down the track, but if you're from the start, you could probably do something like that.
I do both.
Those longer rides, you're obviously getting out of the city a bit more, so potentially even moto camping. If you're looking at moto camping gear, I've got another video on that. I'll link to it. But offline maps is then a must-have, and so there's a couple of different ways, obviously, to approach that.
A GPS is a GPS, and a phone is a phone. But, a GPS is going to be a lot more durable. You can throw your GPS off your bike while you're riding, and it'll be fine. But, a phone, as long as you've got a nice secure mount, quad lock's always really good. I've heard stories of guys having crashes and the only thing left on their bike is their phone on their quad lock. So quad lock's good, but using a map like Gaia GPS is a good one.
Yes.
You're able to download
Osman.
Download the maps, so no matter where you are, you can track your way out if you forget where you are.
And of course, you download the GPX files from motorides.com.au.
Motorides.com.au.
That's the one.
If I can wade in on this, first off, when you're buying a Garmin GPS similar to that, and they've got a full range. This is designed to take the vibration. It's designed to take the heat. It's designed to take the water. They're usually got an IP rating which talks about dust and water of around IP67, which basically means they can be submerged in water for up to 20 minutes, 1 meter deep. It's not the sort of thing you want to do with your phone. This is an investment. You could be paying up around $1,000, but guys, realise when we buy our Samsung phones, we're paying
two grand for
that's exactly
for a
right.
phone. But
having something like that and using your phone maybe as a backup. The guys have talked about some great GPS apps. In fact, now Google and also Apple have offline maps that you can download. So you don't even need to put an app on there, and you can download and have the maps, because you're going to need that, because once you've lost cell signal, you don't have a map.
If you've just got into adventure riding, you're not going to go and buy one of these straight away unless you can. Go for it. Because I love that device. Having said that, for the first 2 years, I used my phone because it was the most accessible that I had, and it worked brilliantly. But make sure you've got that offline version of whatever it is.
We're not trying to deter anyone from if you need to use your phone, do it, but have a vibration dampener on whatever mount you're using, and have some sort of weather sealed, either a case or like a poncho that a brand like Quadlock will sell.
Speaking of GPS, communicator. So whichever system, there's a couple of different systems. We won't go into depth. There's plenty of people who've gone into depth about this. Dog on the Road just did a video on the iPhone with its satellite capabilities versus a Garmin, and he makes a couple of key points. Personally, I still prefer this because that's a great backup to this. But that does tracking, it does messaging and so on as well. So I can send Chris a message to say, yep, we're at camp. And it's surprising how not far away from Sydney you need to be out of mobile phone reach. Like even Wheelbarrow Ridge is not that far. That's out of reach.
Literally the outer suburbs of Sydney, and then you can be out of cell phone reach.
But I would either recommend Garmin or Zoleo. This is the InReach Mini 2. The important thing is have this on your body. You could put it on your bike, but have it on like a backpack strap. That's why it's good to have a nice harness, because if you have it on you and you're separated from your bike and you have a broken
hip or something,
oh my god, you don't want to commando crawl to your bike. Just have it on you. SOS, done. And then for multi-day rides, you have features where you can message. You have contacts, so you have satellite messenger. You can send, hey, I've stopped.
Presets are free. You get three presets that you can send. You can send as many of those as you want. So I just got them set up as delayed but still okay, and at camp, or we're heading back or something like that.
If you can't afford that, go to at least have what's called a personal locating beacon. So these are only a couple of $100. The PLBs. They are absolutely a must. You purchase this, that comes with a 10-year battery in there, so you don't have to replace the battery for 10 years. The only thing you have to do is every 2 years you have to re-register that with the Australian government. It doesn't cost you anything, and it's absolutely critical in the fact that if you are in a situation, you've got the big red button, peel this, hit that, and they will be in to get you anywhere in the world.
Here comes the cavalry.
Here comes the cavalry.
And so that's because this is around $670, whereas that you're paying a couple $100, sometimes less.
And that with the Garmin, you're also paying a subscription.
Monthly.
$20 a month.
$30, something like that. This, you've got the button, come save me. This has obviously way more features. You can connect it to your GPS, again, messaging, tracking your rides, stuff like that.
The only issue with this is all or nothing. Exactly as Max said, here comes the cavalry. So if you have a situation where you've just broken a chain or something where you are immobile but you're not in a death-defying situation, this is probably not the thing that you want to be using. That's where the InReach, you can actually send a message and say, I've broken a chain, I need someone to come and get the bike, but I'm safe.
So a family member can contact the services in the closest town and get whatever fireman or whoever mechanic to come and save you. But remember, if you're going to press the SOS button for another rider, you are not liable for any payments or stuff that comes with pressing. They are.
And this is probably not necessarily with longer rides.
Just off-road rides.
Any off-road riding. Goggles are really good.
Goggles are good.
Goggles are good.
Just having the weather seal around your eyes, super important because this is a lot more visible than having your visor down, and it also is ventilated, and even for me, noise, I can hear things better, I can see things clearer, and you're just keeping all the dust and rocks and weather out of your eyes while still maintaining a really good vision.
And you're saying the contrast as well, like they actually add a bit of contrast so you can see bumps a bit easier.
Yeah, so a brand like this, Oakley, they use a prism technology, which is used in the NFL. It essentially creates contrast between, like rocks and shadows, and it creates a more defined view. So that's really good for trail riding because you can see ruts clearer.
And Oakley also do a downgraded set of goggles, so you don't actually need the premium ones. You can go to another Oakley. The big thing too is the fact that their lenses are optically clear. So you don't get any distortion. And exactly as Max says, is the fact that they're keeping that dust out. You're protecting one of your vital elements of your own body, which is your eyesight.
So the Oakley is the Oakley Air Brake MX. And then they have the Oakley O-Frame, which is a super simplified goggle.
Which is a lot cheaper, isn't it?
A lot cheaper, less than $100. Right. Probably closer to 50 to 80s in that range.
Now it's worth pointing out too that if you have a road helmet, it may not fit. So a dual sport helmet is needed for the goggles to be able to fit in, but you can close the visor over the top of it.
Yeah, and one of the critical areas is someone might think about buying a motocross helmet without that visor. And that's good because you've still got the goggles, you've still got that dust protection, but if you're riding home of an afternoon and you hit a rainstorm, it's amazing how that rain gets past that aperture between the goggles, and it stings like hell. That's where the visor gives you that road safety, that road orientation.
All right, for the bike, so everything we've talked about pretty much has been for us as an individual on the bike, but there's a couple of things that you should get on your bike as well, sort of some must-haves before, even with short rides. Having some basic tools. Now your bike will come with a toolkit. However, the first thing is probably see what you've got, get it out, try and change the tyre in your garage. And then if you see what you've got and see how capable that toolkit is, anything that's missing, and an extra toolkit to have those extra bits and pieces.
Yeah, so something like this from Moto Hansa, it's a $160 toolkit that has all your flathead and Phillips head screwdrivers, Allen keys, and some sockets and star bits and whatnot, and a nice multi-tool.
Front and rear wheels, getting them off. So hub axle on the rear, and then in the front, it's either an Allen key or it's a 14mm or something like that.
Yeah. It's usually quite a
smaller
12 to mil sort of range, 10 to 12. But that, and then plus your tire irons, your spoons to then get your tire off. If you're running tubeless tires, that's I guess handy. If you're new, you can just plug it, and a good tire plug repair kit is great as well. And if you can learn or teach yourself how to change a tube tire, it's worth it. You can just carry a spare tube, and generally you only need to carry a 21-inch tube. If you can carry both, great.
Carry one for the front, small one. The bigger one fits on the back.
So the 21-inch tube will get you
out of trouble
on the rear,
and then fix it when you get up.
But you can't stretch an 18 over a 21-inch rim.
No.
You might stretch if you got
I've never tried.
If you got an 18 on the back and a 21 on the front, you might a 19 might fit both.
Yes,
I've heard people say that as well.
Okay.
I haven't actually tried that personally, but I've just carried a 21.
Just 20. 21's good.
Probably the first thing to do though is just check your bike, see whether it's tubeless or tubed.
Yes.
Because if you've got alloy wheels, it's probably tubeless.
Yeah.
If you've got spokes, it's probably tubed. But check before you get stuck.
I mean that new the new CF Moto 450 MT, right? There's going to be so many people buying that bike, and they're proper 21/18 wheels, off-road, and they're spoked, but they're tubeless. Double check.
You don't realise until you're on the side of the road and you've opened her up and gone,
where's the tube?
That's right. But and Max has touched on a very important point: is get comfortable with your tools. Don't just think that I'm going to carry this tool and it's magically going to fix the bike. So spend a little bit of time in the garage in the comfort of your own home. Maybe do a chain adjustment.
Yes.
Maybe practice taking a wheel off and putting it back on.
Yep.
Just simple things. Check your air filter because
it's going to be easier in the garage than it will be on the side of the road.
Absolutely.
It's just good basic knowledge.
Yes.
I went on a ride recently, and a guy had just started the ride. His bike fell over in the soft grass, and it snapped the clutch lever right over straight away. So for me, an absolute must-have if you're going to go off-road, even if you're not going to go off-road. I still think buying bark busters is a great idea.
So this is the hardware kit with the metal frame, and that's the important bit. But then you've got the plastic guards, which will do a lot for you for blocking wind, for one, but also blocking brush and branches. And
the name kind of implies, like, you know, cutting through the trees and so on. But really, the reality is probably, as you say, the wind, keeping the wind off your hands, particularly when it's cold and wet.
Weather.
But then protecting the levers, and it's the first thing that usually hits the ground when you drop it.
Absolutely.
It is ultra important, I think, before crash bars, because generally when you drop your bike, what's going to touch the ground is the widest point, which will be, for me, on a T7, it's going to be the bark busters and the foot pegs.
Usually a complete set of bark busters is usually the same price as one lever, one genuine OEM lever.
Yes.
And the big thing too is a lot of bikes these days, so-called adventure bikes, comes with plastic handguards.
Yes.
Yeah.
The first thing you want to do is take them off, because they give you no impact protection. They give you a bit of weather protection, but no impact protection.
So it's like the Ducati, the bike that actually fell over was a Ducati, and it had the plastic ones on it.
And it still bent the lever.
Yeah, it snapped it completely.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I can't imagine how much a Ducati lever is. But you were saying last time that there was these go around that, because they've got the indicator built into that.
Don't think, oh, well, I can't change them now. Bark busters make the metal frame to go around, because it's bike specific.
Yeah.
You can go on Bark Busters website and put in your make and model and year, and it'll come up with what fits.
There's a couple of different ways to approach this. Luggage is a whole different can of worms. I'm not going to open it completely.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of little things that you can think about. And I think if you are buying something, we'll touch on the literage as well, to what to look for.
Of course,
sometimes knowing what to get.
So, like a duffel bag like this, if you're doing multi-day rides, multi overnights, this is a 30-litre duffel bag.
That's pretty big.
This is pretty big. Like, you can get 50, 60 litres. Just don't even think about it, please. 30 litres, at least on top.
Bigger isn't better.
Yeah, and I prefer pannier frames and pannier bags, or even some sort of overthrow system, because it keeps the weight lower and more better center of gravity. When you keep a bag like this on top, you start to feel the tip.
Having a bag that size at the back is, when you're doing a lot of adventure riding, you're wanting to move around on that bike.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you've got this thing which is now blocking the back there. You can't get your weight back far enough.
That is a really good point too, because just before we touch on these, I love my tank bag, right? And I actually got it here, by the way. And this is where I carry even sunscreen and bits and pieces like that, right? But when you get into the really hairy stuff, you're hanging over the front tyre, and suddenly this is here, and you're hanging over it. So it's pros and cons to whether you put that weight front or rear. Yes. But I think at the end of the day, we're talking about balance.
Yeah. You might tickle your balls or something. I don't know. But we'll cut that out. But a tail bag is a good option, I think, because it's smaller. You're not as big as a duffel bag. It's not as big as a duffel bag. But 8 litres, 15 litres, somewhere in between there, 12 litres. Yep. That's a good size for you to carry your medical, your tube, your toolkit, or whatever you're carrying.
Yep.
And keep, again, the bulkier stuff. If you're doing longer rides, get some pannier bags, keep the bulk of the stuff in there, and just have something light on top.
One of those things, when you're a beginner, you don't realise how much of it is you and how much of it is the bike.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can make these little mistakes of like putting bags up really high on the back, and you think, oh my God, I can't get this, I'm getting it all wrong. And it's like, no, you've just created a harder situation to manage.
Yeah.
The thing we talk about is this centre of mass, and the situation was, now we've put something which could be weighing 10 or 15 kilos. Not only are we putting it up, but we're putting it at the back.
Further back,
So we're now changing the whole balance of the motorcycle. We're not getting that weight over the front end.
Yeah.
Whereas, exactly as Max has said, by carrying side bags, you're carrying it low and you're carrying it a lot further forward, so the bike is a lot more balanced.
Yeah. But generally for people just doing day rides,
or even tours, because tours they're going to carry most of your luggage. So just having enough.
Very true. So if you're riding with a touring company, someone like Ride ADV or
Aussie Biker Hike
or Ride 360, they're going to carry your luggage on their truck and meet you at the destination. but you still want personal items on your bike or on yourself. Adventure works, you know, we've got a decent range, so something just to go on the back of your bike, something small, carry your essentials. I find it fairly important.
Now, Bill, you've just grabbed out of the back shed. No, not back shed, but
The back shelf.
You've thrown in. I don't have this on the script, but you've thrown this into the mix into the last minute, which I think is actually a pretty good idea.
He's got a lot of experience. This one.
He kind of knows what he's talking about.
If you can't tell,
you should probably listen to him. Toe strap, yeah. So if you get stuck, you break a chain, which is pretty. It doesn't always happen, but maybe if you're not good at chain maintenance, not anyone in particular.
Yeah. So when we talk about toe strap, what we're talking about is being able to tow a bike out, and it can be as simple as you've dropped the bike, you've lost your balance, you've dropped the bike, and the engine case hits a rock, and all of a sudden you're spilling out oil.
Broken a clutch lever, takes
broken
nothing.
a clutch lever, anything like that, and you might have to tow a bike out just to get it out on the road, so your friends can bring a trailer along. Having some form of towing strap. This one is a beautifully little toe strap. It's designed to have a loop, so the loop goes over the bike which is doing the towing, and the last bit actually wraps around the foot peg of the bike being towed, so that you can rest your foot on there, and if something goes wrong, you can lift your foot up and that toe strap goes around, so you don't get dragged on the ground. So having something like that,
you can separate yourselves.
You can separate yourselves.
Ballistic nylon, like proper. I believe it's Cordura ballistic webbing. So something like that.
Sounds impressive.
Oh yeah, it's got the big fancy words in there, so you know it's the real deal. But yeah, that's it packs away, takes up no space. But this is the type of item that you're probably the only one who's going to be carrying one of these, because again, not something super thought about, but super handy.
Yeah. All right, last but not least is fuel bladders. So particularly if you're on a bike that's got a small capacity fuel tank. So, if you're going riding with someone who's got like a Tenere World Raid, or myself having 23 litres, I never have to worry about this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But then the others do, so.
It's not for you. But newer riders who might be buying something like a WR or an XT250 or a CRF 300L generally have quite small tanks, less than 12 litres or so. Something like this is how ADV works fuel bladder. This is 8 litres. You can get a 5 litre one as well. This is something that rolls down to nothing.
Yep.
So you just roll it down around the spout that's in the pouch there. Takes up very little room. You can go in your backpack or a pannier frame. Again, this is the 8 litre one. But you don't have to fill it up all the way, but it just gives you that extra range. If you're slightly worried, and you're at a petrol station, you've got a long stint in front of you, or a medium kind of stint, pack this up with a bit of fuel, strap it on the back of the bikes using those rock straps that we recommended, and when you have enough space in your tank, put it straight in, and roll it back up again and put it in your bag, and it just deletes the worry, and you don't have to go and buy a $700 fuel tank.
And I guess that's the thing, right? You could do that initially too, and then if you find you are using it frequently, then you can consider the Safari tank or whatever.
IMS or a Chirby, they're all great brands, but obviously they're expensive. It's like the seat situation. A new tank might be something for the future, but this will get you out of trouble. It's also just handy to have.
And you might say to yourself, why do I need that? I can go down to the hardware store and buy a proper 5 litre can. We sell them as well. Yeah. The only issue is, once you've emptied them, you've still got a 5 litre can.
Yeah.
What do you do with that?
You've got a 5 litre tank of air.
Exactly right. Whereas you can fold this up as Max says, and then all of a sudden you're not taking up any space at all.
Yeah, exactly. Adventure riding doesn't have to be, you don't have to have all the bling, but this is stuff that's going to make you more comfortable and more confident when you're riding, especially starting out.
I think, with anything you're buying, just look at it in a value point of view, invest in what you can, and then look for the next thing and the next thing, and just keep building from there. So
Exactly.
Yep, excellent. Thank you very much, guys.
Pleasure.
It's been fun, and anything that we've looked at today is available at Adventure Moto.
If we don't have stock, just contact us. We can order anything in for you. But everything we've discussed, we've just pulled off the shelf. So
you're open 7 days now.
We're open 7 days a week now. So Monday to Friday is 9 to 5. Saturday is 9 till 3. Sunday is 10 till 2. So we've got a little 4-hour window on Sunday. It's usually the day we make some coffees for the customers and have a bit more of a chat. It's a bit more relaxed. That's my day off in the shop. But no, we just love if you come in and have a chat and see the stuff and feel the quality and you know, I know online shopping is super easy, but yeah, make
getting in there and seeing
Yeah,
it and
yeah.
touching it and kind of
Yeah.
And
work out how
we've got a fairly extensive online shop, so it might be a situation where you see some of these products and you want to come in and try them on.
Perfect. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Vern. Appreciate it.